Hello, and welcome to Podcast for English. My name is Linda. I'm really happy you're here today. This channel is for people who want to learn English in a simple and natural way. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to speak fast. You don't need to understand every word. You only need to listen. You can listen while you rest. You can listen while you work. You can listen while you live your daily life. Take a deep breath, relax your body, clear your mind. Now, let's begin today's English lesson together. In today's podcast, we are talking about learning English, but not learning English in the usual way. Not sitting at a desk, not opening a book, not forcing yourself to study. Today's topic is simple. Learn English without sitting down to study. Many people believe learning only happens when you sit and study. They think, if I do not sit down, I am not learning. This belief creates pressure, and pressure makes learning harder. But English is not only learned at a desk, English is learned through exposure, through repetition, through daily life. You do not need a chair and a table to learn English. You need contact. You need English to be near you. This episode is for people who feel tired of studying. It is for people who feel busy. It is for people who want progress without stress. You can learn English while standing, while walking, while resting, while living. Learning does not need a special position. It needs a gentle connection. In this podcast, we will talk about how English enters daily life, why movement helps learning, and how progress happens without formal study. You do not need to prepare. You do not need to focus hard. Just listen. Because learning can happen even when you are not studying. And sometimes that is when it works best. The brain learns better without pressure. Pressure makes the brain tense. A tense brain focuses on survival, not learning. When you feel pressure, the brain asks, am I doing this right? Am I good enough? Am I failing? These questions create stress. Stress blocks learning. When you sit down and force yourself to study, pressure often appears. You watch the time. You check progress. You judge yourself. This judgment creates tension. Without pressure, the brain behaves differently. It relaxes. A relaxed brain is curious. Curiosity opens learning. When you learn English without sitting down, pressure drops. You are not in study mode, you are in life mode. Life mode feels safe. Safety tells the brain, this is okay. When the brain feels safe, it listens better. It notices sound. It notices rhythm. It notices patterns. This noticing is real learning. Pressure also makes learning feel heavy. You feel tired before you even start. Without pressure, learning feels light. Light learning lasts longer. The brain prefers small, gentle input over strong, forced input. Forced learning creates resistance. Resistance slows progress. Gentle learning creates flow. Flow keeps learning moving. Another reason the brain learns better without pressure is memory. Stress hormones damage memory. Calm states support memory. When you are relaxed, the brain stores information more easily. You do not need to try to remember. Memory happens naturally. Without pressure, you also accept not understanding. You do not panic. You do not stop. You continue listening. Continuing is more important than understanding everything. The brain learns from continuation, not from perfection. Pressure demands results. Learning needs time. When pressure is gone, time feels available. Available time allows repetition. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates understanding. This is why learning English without sitting down to study often works better. Not because you do less, but because you remove what blocks learning. Pressure. And when pressure disappears, the brain does what it was designed to do. Learn naturally. Movement helps learning, not sitting still, not forcing focus. Movement. When the body moves, the mind relaxes. A relaxed mind is open. An open mind learns better. This is why learning English does not need a chair or a desk. Daily actions already move the body. Walking, cleaning, cooking, driving, stretching. These actions create a natural rhythm. Rhythm helps the brain. When there is rhythm, the brain follows patterns. Language is also rhythm, sound, stress, intonation. When movement and language happen together, learning feels natural. Another reason movement helps learning is attention. When you sit and study, attention becomes narrow. You focus hard. You get tired quickly. When you move, attention becomes soft. Soft attention lasts longer. You are not forcing focus. You are allowing awareness. This awareness lets English enter without resistance. Movement also reduces fear. You are not studying. You are just living. This removes judgment. No tests, no mistakes, no failure. Without fear, the brain stays calm. Calm brains absorb more. Daily actions also repeat. You walk every day. You cook often. You clean regularly. When English joins these actions, repetition becomes automatic. Automatic repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity builds confidence. Confidence keeps learning alive. Movement also helps memory. When learning is connected to action, memory becomes stronger. The brain remembers what happened while something meaningful was happening. Action creates meaning. Meaning supports memory. You do not need to understand everything while moving. You only need to listen. Sound enters. Patterns form. Later, understanding appears. This is delayed learning, and delayed learning is powerful. Movement also prevents burnout. You are not sitting and pushing yourself. You are flowing with your day. Flow does not exhaust you. It supports you. This is why learning English while moving often feels easier. Not because English is simple, but because the environment supports the brain. When English moves with your body, learning becomes part of life. not a separate activity. And learning that is part of life is learning that lasts. Listening while doing other things still builds real skill. Many learners think, if I'm not fully focused, I am wasting time. But learning does not require full focus all the time. The brain is always working, even in the background. When you listen while cooking, while walking, while cleaning, your ears are open. Sound enters. The brain receives it. You may not notice learning, but learning is happening. This type of listening is called background listening. Background listening builds familiarity. Familiarity is the first step towards skill. You begin to recognize sounds. You begin to recognize rhythm. You begin to recognize common words. Recognition comes before understanding. You do not need to understand everything to build skill. You need to hear English often. Listening while doing other things makes this possible because it adds time you would not use for study. These extra minutes accumulate over days, over weeks, over months. Skill grows from accumulation, not from intensity. Another reason this kind of listening works is low pressure. You are not testing yourself. You are not checking mistakes. You are not judging progress. Without judgment, the brain stays relaxed. Relaxed brains learn better. Listening while moving also helps pronunciation. You hear natural speech. You hear how words connect. You hear natural pauses. Even if you do not repeat, the brain records patterns. Later, these patterns appear when you speak, not perfectly, but naturally. Listening during other activities also keeps English close. You do not forget it. English stays part of your environment. This constant presence changes your relationship with the language. It stops feeling foreign. It starts feeling familiar. Skill is not built in one moment. It is built through repeated contact. Listening while doing other things provides this contact. Quietly, without effort, without stress. Do not underestimate this type of learning. It may feel simple, but simple systems are often the strongest because they continue, and continued exposure always creates real skill. Repetition is powerful. But not all repetition works the same way. Hard repetition requires effort. You force yourself, you push, you feel tired. This kind of repetition does not last long. Repetition without effort is different. It happens naturally. It happens because English is nearby. When English repeats without effort, the brain stays relaxed. A relaxed brain learns better. Hard study often creates tension. You try to remember. You try not to forget. You try to be perfect. Trying too hard creates pressure. Pressure blocks learning. Repetition without effort removes this pressure. You hear the same voice. You hear the same phrases. You hear the same rhythm again and again and again. Not because you force it, but because it fits into your day. This repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity reduces effort. Reduced effort allows repetition to continue. This creates a cycle. Easy repetition leads to more repetition. More repetition leads to stronger memory. Hard study often breaks this cycle. You study a lot. You get tired. You stop. When you stop, memory fades. Repetition without effort does not stop easily because it does not exhaust you. Another reason effortless repetition is powerful is emotion. Hard study often feels stressful. Stress tells the brain, this is difficult. Effortless repetition feels neutral or pleasant. Pleasant input stays longer in memory. The brain remembers what feels safe. Effortless repetition also works well with time. It does not need long sessions. Short contact is enough. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. These moments repeat many times. Over time, these moments add up. Hard study often happens rarely, once or twice a week. Effortless repetition happens daily. Daily contact beats rare intensity. Another important point is trust. When repetition is effortless, you trust the process. You stop worrying about results. You allow learning to happen. This trust keeps you consistent. Consistency creates progress. Progress created this way feels natural. You do not notice every step, but one day you realize something. English feels familiar. English feels slower. English feels easier. This change did not come from pushing harder. It came from staying close. That is why repetition without effort is more powerful than hard study. Because it works with the brain, not against it. Daily exposure does not need to be called studying. The word study often creates resistance. It sounds heavy. It sounds serious. It sounds tiring. But exposure is different. Exposure is simply being around English. You do not sit. You do not plan. You do not prepare. You just allow English to exist near you. This can happen in many ways. When you wake up, English can be there. A short audio, a familiar voice, a calm message. You are not studying. You are starting your day. When you move through the day, English can stay with you. While walking, while driving, while cleaning, while resting. You are not studying, you are living. This is the key. Learning without studying means changing labels. You stop calling it study. You call it listening. You call it background sound. You call it company. When the label changes, the feeling changes. Pressure disappears. Another way to create daily exposure is repetition of environment. Same place, same time, same voice. For example, every morning you hear the same speaker. The brain expects it. Expectation creates comfort. Comfort supports learning. You are not adding time. You are using existing moments, moments that already happen, waiting, relaxing, doing routine tasks. English fills these moments gently. You do not need to understand everything. Understanding is not the goal. Presence is the goal. Presence keeps English alive in your mind. Daily exposure also works because it is forgiving. If you miss a moment, nothing breaks. You return later. No guilt, no catching up, no pressure. This flexibility keeps learning sustainable. Another important point is consistency of input. Same type of content, same style, same pace. The brain likes consistency. It learns faster from familiar patterns. Daily exposure without study builds these patterns. Over time, you notice changes. English feels closer, English feels slower, English feels less demanding. These changes are signs of learning, not because you studied, but because you stayed exposed. Daily exposure is learning without effort, without struggle, without sitting down. And learning that happens this way lasts because it fits into life, not against it. Burnout is common in language learning. Many learners do not quit because English is hard. They quit because learning feels exhausting. Sitting down to study often creates pressure. You must focus. You must remember. You must improve. This pressure builds slowly, day after day, until one day you stop. Learning without sitting down changes this cycle because it removes the feeling of effort. When learning feels light, you do not get tired of it. You do not feel mentally drained. You feel normal. Normal learning does not cause burnout. Burnout comes from pushing. Learning this way does not push. It allows. Another reason this method prevents quitting is flexibility. You are not locked into a schedule. If life changes, learning adapts. You do not feel that you failed. You simply continue when you can. This flexibility keeps learning alive. Burnout also comes from guilt. You feel guilty when you miss a day. You feel guilty when progress feels slow. Learning without studying removes guilt. There is nothing to miss. English is just there. You return naturally. Quitting often happens after disappointment. You expect fast results. They do not appear. You feel discouraged. This method removes expectations. You are not measuring progress. You are staying connected. Connection is enough. Connection keeps you going. Another reason this way prevents burnout is enjoyment. You choose content that feels calm. You choose voices you like hearing. Enjoyment creates return. Return creates habit. Habit prevents quitting. Learning without sitting down also protects your energy. You are not using extra mental effort. You are using existing moments. This makes learning sustainable. Sustainable learning does not end suddenly. It continues. Even when motivation is low, even when life is busy, even when energy is gone. This method keeps English alive without demanding attention, and learning that does not demand rarely causes burnout because it respects your limits. And respecting limits is how learning lasts. This is why learning English this way prevents burnout and quitting. English does not enter you all at once. It arrives slowly, quietly. When you stop sitting down to study, something changes. English stops feeling like a subject. It starts feeling like a presence. It is nearby. It is familiar. It is part of your day. This presence changes the brain. The brain stops resisting. It stops saying, "This is hard." It starts saying, "This is normal." Normal language becomes usable language. When English is near you every day, your mind adapts. You hear sounds without effort. You recognize patterns without thinking. Understanding appears naturally, not perfectly, but comfortably. This comfort is important because comfort creates confidence. Confidence creates use. And using English is how English becomes real. Without formal study, you are not forcing memory. You are allowing it. Memory grows better this way, because the brain remembers what it meets often, not what it is forced to remember. Over time, English moves from outside to inside. It becomes part of how you listen, part of how you react, part of how you think. This change does not feel dramatic. It feels normal. And normal is the goal. Because language is not meant to feel special. It is meant to be used. Learning English without sitting down is not lazy. It is respectful. Respectful to your energy. Respectful to your life. When learning respects life, it lasts. And learning that lasts always wins. English does not need a desk. It needs time. It needs presence. It needs to live with you. And when it does, it becomes part of you naturally. You've reached the end of today's episode. Before you leave, I want you to remember one simple thing. You did something good for yourself today. You listened. You stayed. You didn't give up. And that matters. Learning English is not about being fast. It is not about being perfect. It is about showing up again and again. Some days will feel easy. Some days will feel hard. Both are normal. Progress does not always feel exciting. Sometimes it feels quiet. Sometimes you don't notice it at all. But learning is still happening. Every minute you listen, your ears are learning new sounds. Your mind is learning new patterns. Your confidence is growing, even if you cannot see it yet. You don't need to push yourself. You don't need to compare yourself to others. You are on your own path, and your pace is enough. Let English be part of your daily life. Listen while you rest. Listen while you work. Listen while you live your normal day. If this episode helped you feel calmer, more focused, or more motivated, then your time here was well spent. Come back when you can. Come back when you need a quiet space to learn. My name is Linda, and this is Podcast for English. Thank you for learning with me. Until next time, keep going and never give up. Believe in yourself, because you are stronger than you think.